So I'm going to be reading the next couple of chapters from Holes. So hopefully you're all up to date from yesterday. So I'm going to be doing the same sort of thing, asking some questions, and then you can pause the video and have a go at the questions. If there's a question that you don't understand, please don't panic, give it a go, but if you're really stuck, just skip it and then focus on the next question. I have got a few fluffy friends here that wanted to come and listen. So I've got Tramp, Lady, Mickey and Millie, and of course I've got these two, and I don't know what they'll be doing. I'm sure they'll be entertaining you, and they probably won't come and snuggle on my lap because that's just what they're like. Who knows? Let's give it a go. Chapter 5. There were 6 large grey tents, and each one had a black letter on it. A, B, C, D, E or F. The first 5 tents were for the campers, and the counsellors slept in F. Who do you think the counsellors are? Stanley was assigned to tent D. Mr. Pendanski was his counsellor. My name is easy to remember, said Mr. Pendanski as he shook hands with Stanley. 3 easy words. Pen, dance, key. Mr. Sir returned to the office. Mr. Pendanski was younger than Mr. Sir, but not nearly as scary looking. The top of his head was shaved so close it was almost bald, and his face was covered in a thick, curly black beard, and his nose was badly sunburnt. Mr. Sir isn't really so bad, said Mr. Pendanski. He's just been in a bad mood ever since he quit smoking. The person you've really got to worry about is the warden. There's only one rule at Camp Green Lake. Don't upset the warden. Stanley nodded. I want you to know, Stanley, that I respect you, said Mr. Pendanski. I understand you've made some bad mistakes in your life, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But everyone makes mistakes. You may have done some bad things, but that doesn't mean you're a bad kid. Stanley nodded. It was pointless trying to tell his counsellor that he was innocent. He figured that everybody probably said that. And he didn't want Mr. Pendanski to think he had a bad attitude. I'm going to help you turn your life around, said his counsellor, but you're going to have to help me too. Can I count on your help? Yes, sir, Stanley said. Mr. Pendanski said, good, and patted Stanley on the back. 2 boys, each carrying a shovel, were coming across the compound. Mr. Pendanski called to them, Rex, Alan, I want you to come and say hello to Stanley. He's the newest member of our team. The boys glanced at Stanley. They were dripping with sweat, and their faces were so dirty it took Stanley a moment to notice that one kid was white and the other black. What happened to Bath Bag? Said one kid. Lewis is still in the hospital, said Mr. Pendanski. He won't be returning. He told the boys to come and shake Stanley's hand and introduce themselves like gentlemen. Why do you think Bath Bag was called Bath Bag? Not bath, like a bathtub, Bath, B-A-R-F. Hi, the other kid grunted. That's Alan, said Mr. Pendanski. My name's not Alan, said the boy, it's Squid, and that's X-Ray. Hey, said X-Ray. He smiled and shook Stanley's hand. He wore glasses, but they were so dirty that Stanley wondered how he could see out of them. Mr. Pendanski told Alan to go to the rec hall and bring the other boys to meet Stanley. Then he led them inside the tent. There were 7 cots, each one less than 2 feet from one next to it. So when they say cot, it doesn't mean like a baby's cot, it means like a small bed. Which one was Lewis's cot? Mr. Pendanski said. Bath Bag slept here, said X-Ray, pointing at one of the beds. All right, Stanley, that'll be yours. Stanley looked at the bed and nodded. He wasn't particularly thrilled about sleeping in the same cot that had been used by somebody named Bath Bag. Why wasn't he happy about having Bath Bag's old bed? 7 crates were stacked into 2 piles at one side of the tent. The opened end of the crates faced forward. Stanley put his backpack, change of clothes and a towel in what used to be Bath Bag's crate. It was at the bottom of the sack that had 3 in it. Stanley returned with 4 other boys. The three were introduced by Mr. Pendanski as Jose, Theodore and Ricky, but they called themselves Magnet, Armpit and Zigzag. They all have nicknames, explained Mr. Pendanski. However, I prefer to use the names their parents gave them, the names that society will recognise them when they return to becoming useful and hard-working members of society. It ain't just a nickname, X-Ray told Mr. Pendanski. He tapped the rim of his glasses. I can see inside you. You've got a big fat heart. I can see inside you. You've got a big fat heart. Why do you think that boy's name is X-Ray? You know why his name's Zero? Asked Mr. Pendanski. Because there's nothing inside his head. He laughed and pointed at Zero. Zero said nothing. And that's Mum, a boy said. Mr. Pendanski smiled at him. If it makes you feel better to call me Mum, Theodore, then go ahead and call me Mum. He turned to Stanley. If you have any questions, Theodore will help you. You got that, Theodore? I'm depending on you. Theodore spat a thin line of saliva between his teeth. You were all new here once, said Mr. Pendanski, and you all know what it feels like. I'm counting on every one of you to help Stanley. Stanley looked at the ground. Mr. Pendanski left the tent, and soon the other boys began to file out, taking their towels and change of clothes with them. Stanley was relieved to be left alone. He was so thirsty, he felt as if he would die if he didn't get something to drink soon. Thirsty, not 30. Hey, Theodore, he said, going after him. Do you know where I can fill my canteen? Remember, that's the water flask. Theodore whirled and grabbed Stanley by the collar. My name's not Theodore, he said. It's Armpit. And he threw Stanley to the ground. Stanley stared up at him, terrified. There's a water fountain on the wall of the shower stall. Thanks, Armpit, said Stanley. As he watched the boy turn and walk away, he couldn't for the life of him figure out why anybody would want to be called Armpit. In a way, it made him feel a little bit better about having to sleep in a bed that had been used by somebody named Bathbag. Maybe it was a term of respect.